Welcome to Daily English Stories. Every story hides a world. Some inspire, some haunt, some stay forever. Chapter 1. Saturday Morning Energy. Lucas woke earlier than usual on Saturday, the soft rays of sunlight slipping past his curtains and landing gently across his bed. For a brief moment, he thought about rolling over and surrendering to another hour of sleep. But the clear blue sky outside, streaked with the faintest traces of morning clouds, was too tempting to ignore. With a small smile, he pushed off the covers and stretched, feeling his muscles loosen. Saturdays were his favorite, not because they meant staying in bed longer, but because they offered freedom. No meetings, no deadlines, no rushing from one place to another. Just time to do the things he loved. After a glass of cold water, he laced up his running shoes and stepped outside. The air greeted him with a crisp coolness, carrying the faint scent of freshly cut grass from a neighbor's lawn. The streets were almost silent, except for the occasional distant bark of a dog and the cheerful chirping of birds. Lucas jogged toward the park, his breath steady, his mind still waking up. The park's pathway curved between rows of tall trees, whose leaves whispered softly on the wind. Patches of flowers, some white, some purple, some bright yellow, had just begun to bloom, creating a splash of color against the deep green grass. With every step, Lucas felt lighter, as if the stress of the previous week was being left behind on the pavement. His feet found their rhythm, and the cool breeze brushed against his face, waking him up more than any cup of coffee ever could. By the time he completed his third lap around the park, the warmth of the sun was beginning to settle in. The once cool air had shifted, and golden light streamed through the trees, casting long, soft shadows on the ground. Lucas slowed his pace to a walk, letting his breathing return to normal. He took a moment to simply stand there, soaking in the peaceful scenery, the gentle rustle of leaves, the distant laughter of a child playing, the faint smell of flowers carried by the wind. Walking home, he realized how much he loved mornings like this, the stillness, the clarity, the unhurried pace. Running on a Saturday wasn't just exercise. It was a quiet celebration of the weekend, a reminder that the best days often started with the simplest choices. By the time he reached his front door, his mind was clear, his mood light, and his energy high. He knew the rest of the day might bring plans, people, and noise, but for now, it had begun exactly the way he wanted. Chapter 2. Brunch and Afternoon Adventures. After a quick, refreshing shower, Lucas felt the satisfying buzz of energy that only a good morning run could bring. He dressed casually, grabbed his wallet, and made his way to a small café downtown, where he was meeting a few close friends. The café sat tucked into a quiet street corner, its large windows letting in generous streams of sunlight. The smell of freshly baked bread and brewed coffee greeted him the moment he stepped inside. Wooden tables, mismatched chairs, and little potted plants gave the place a warm, homely charm. His friends were already there, waving him over. Soon, the table filled with plates of fluffy pancakes, topped with fresh berries, creamy lattes crowned with delicate foam art, and a shared basket of warm croissants. The conversation flowed easily, touching on everything from updates about work to half-serious plans for a group trip somewhere sunny. Laughter echoed between sips of coffee, and for that hour, the outside world felt far away. When brunch came to an end, Lucas felt reluctant to part ways just yet, but he also craved a bit of solo wandering. He decided to take a short walk to the local farmer's market, which was only a few streets away. The market was alive with color and sound. Stalls overflowed with plump tomatoes, shiny green zucchinis, baskets of strawberries so red they looked almost painted. There were tables lined with jars of golden honey, bottles of homemade olive oil, and fragrant loaves of artisan bread. The air carried a mix of aromas, fresh herbs, grilled street food, and sweet pastries. Vendors called out friendly greetings, and people moved slowly, savoring the leisurely pace of the afternoon. Lucas stopped at a bakery stall and picked up a warm loaf of sourdough, its crust perfectly crisp. At the next stall, he bought a small basket of strawberries, still cool from the morning harvest. He could already imagine how the two would taste together. By the time he got home, the sun was higher in the sky, casting a soft golden hue through his kitchen window. He sliced the bread into thick pieces, spread each slice with a layer of cream cheese, and topped them with the fresh strawberries. The first bite was exactly what he'd hoped for, sweet, creamy, and perfectly balanced by the tang of the sourdough. Sitting at his kitchen table, Lucas realized how much he loved moments like this: simple food, a quiet afternoon, and the satisfaction of turning fresh market finds into something delicious. It wasn't extravagant, but it was deeply fulfilling, and in its own way, it made the weekend feel richer. Chapter 3. Sunday Discoveries. Sunday morning arrived with a quiet calm. The sunlight was softer than Saturday's, filtering gently through Lucas's curtains. He made a quick breakfast, just toast and coffee, because he had something different in mind for the day. He decided to take a day trip to a nearby town he had never visited before, one he had only read about in passing. The drive itself turned into an experience. The road wound through rolling hills, past fields painted gold by the late summer sun, and tiny villages where time seemed to move slower. Occasionally, Lucas slowed down just to take in the view. Patches of wildflowers growing along the roadside, old stone cottages with ivy creeping up their walls, and the occasional farm animal grazing lazily in the distance. When he arrived, the charm of the town was immediate. Narrow cobblestone streets curved in unexpected directions, leading to the historic town square. The square was small but lively. Locals gathered around a moss-covered fountain, chatting in the warm morning air. Market stalls sold handmade crafts, fresh pastries, and pottery painted with intricate patterns. Lucas spent the first part of the day wandering. He stepped into a small museum tucked behind the square, where sunlit rooms displayed artifacts from the town's past: old maps, tools, clothing, and sepia-toned photographs of people who had lived there generations ago. The museum felt personal, almost like a memory someone had decided to share. By lunchtime, the smell of cooking led him to the town's oldest restaurant, a place with worn wooden tables and low ceilings. The owner, a friendly man with a broad smile, insisted he try their signature dish, the merchant's stew, a recipe passed down for generations. The first spoonful was enough to understand why it had lasted through the years: rich broth, tender vegetables, and a blend of spices that seemed both familiar and completely new. It was comfort food at its finest. After lunch, Lucas strolled along the river that bordered the town, stopping occasionally to watch ducks glide across the water. He bought a small bag of almond cookies from a bakery for the road and sat for a while on a bench, just taking in the atmosphere. By the time he returned home in the evening, the sky was streaked with shades of pink and gold. The trip had left him pleasantly tired, the good kind of exhaustion that comes from a day well spent. At home, he curled up on the couch with a blanket, put on a light-hearted movie, and let the weekend's memories play through his mind. There had been energy, connection, and discovery, and he realized this was exactly the kind of balance he wanted to carry into the weeks ahead.